Coming up in our newscast tonight. In his weekly meeting with top aides, President Moon Jae-in calls for all-out efforts to prepare for the historic dialogue with North Korea. Over in China, Seoul's top security advisor receives positive response on recent diplomatic breakthroughs with Pyongyang. Despite various concerns surrounding Trump's rapid response to North Korea's offer for talks, the U.S. president expressed faith Pyongyang would keep its promise to halt missile tests. The home squad continues its winning ways at the Pyeongchang Winter Paralympics. South Korea hauled its first medal over the weekend in cross-country skiing. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome, I'm Daniel Che. President Moon Jae-in has asked the nation's support for the successful arrangement of the historic summits ahead. Elsewhere around the world, his key officials are hard at work trying to get jittery regional powers on the same page when it comes to dialogue with North Korea. Our Chief Cheonggye correspondent Moon Gun-young starts us off.
With the two Koreas' decision to hold a historic summit in late April and the U.S. President Donald Trump's stunning decision to accept a face-to-face meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, all set to happen in the next 2 months, South Korean President Moon Jae-in and his Blue House remains extra cautious in taking the process forward so as to not blow off a hard-won chance.
한반도 비핵화와 항구적 평화 체제, 남북 공동 번영의 길을 열 수 있는 소중한 기회가 마련되었습니다. 그러나 우리가 2달이라는 짧은 기간에 이루려고 하는 것은 지금까지 세계가 성공하지 못했던 대전환의 길입니다. 그래서 그 결과도 낙관하기가 어렵고 과정도 조심스러운 것이 현실입니다.
While the South Korean president pleaded for nationwide support for the success of the upcoming talks across the political aisle and ideological differences, on the foreign relations front, he began his efforts to bring jittery regional powers on board. His national security advisor Chung Eui-yong traveled to Beijing and met with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Monday, while a parallel delegation headed by National Intelligence Service Director Seo Hoon flew to Tokyo to brief Japanese officials on the attempts to open talks with Pyongyang on its nuclear and missile program.
Our President Moon Jae-in and the South Korean government believe that various advances toward achieving the goal of peace and denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula have been made possible with active support and contribution from President Xi Jinping and the Chinese government.
Yang said China insists on all parties sticking to solving the issue through dialogue and consultation.
As long as all parties insist on solving the issue politically and maintain this direction, we can undoubtedly lead the situation on the Korean Peninsula to move forward in the direction in which the global community hopes for.
Chung is also scheduled to visit Russia on Tuesday, where he'll likely sit down with Russian President Vladimir Putin to brief him on the outcome of the North Korea trip and the progress of the subsequent talks.
The South Korean president says the fate of this country and the Korean Peninsula hangs on how things are handled in the next 2 months, this opportunity that has landed in the world's hands like a miracle. And amid lingering uncertainty and anxiety running through the minds of all those involved in this process, experts warn you can never be too careful in a delicate situation like this, and don't count your summits until they're hatched. Moon Gun-young, Arirang News, the Blue House.
Following the special envoy's visit to the United States last week, Seoul's top diplomat will be traveling to Washington on Thursday. The foreign ministry confirmed during the 3-day trip, Kang will hold talks with our U.S. counterpart Rex Tillerson on the upcoming dialogue with North Korea. According to the ministry, the duo will also touch on economic and trade relations, including America's recent steel and aluminum tariffs. She is also set to meet with other senior officials during her stay. South Korean nuke envoy Lee Do-hoon will arrive a day earlier to prepare for those sessions. President Trump declared over the weekend it's time for talks with North Korea. While his administration backed those words, they've also been quick to emphasize no concessions will be made. Kwon Jang-ho has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump showed at a rally on Saturday that he was fired up for talks with North Korea, saying that he trusts Pyongyang to keep its word on halting nuclear missile testing for now.
I think they want to do something. I think they want to make peace. I think it's time. And I think we've shown great strength. I think that's also important, right?
He also took to Twitter to express these views, saying he believes North Korea will honour their commitment. On Sunday, Trump's senior officials were out in full force on the Sunday news shows to support the president's stance, while emphasising that the US will not back down from its hardline position before the talks.
The sanctions are staying on. The defense posture is staying the same as it is. So the president is going to sit down and see if he can cut a deal.
He can't conduct nuclear testing. He's got to stop the missile testing that he's been hard at for the last years. He's got to continue to allow us to perform our militarily necessary exercises on the peninsula. And then he's got to make sure that he leaves on the table that discussion for denuclearization.
However, some criticism has been voiced from members of Congress, even among Trump's Republican allies, that the deal for the talks had been reached too impulsively and that a lot of work has to be done before they meet.
But I don't think anybody really believes that North Korea is prepared to denuclearize. If somebody is saying, I've heard it suggested, that that's what the North Koreans have already agreed to, I would question that.
Meanwhile, National Security Advisor H.R. Master is slated to brief the United Nations Security Council on Washington's talks with the South Korean envoys on Monday, as well as meet with the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Trump's resolve for talks seems firm, but it remains to be seen whether Kim Jong-un will act as promised and what sort of progress will be made when the two leaders meet in May. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Good evening, I'm Lee Ji-won, and throughout this week, I'll be bringing you the latest on the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Paralympics. With last Friday's opening ceremony, we're now on day 3 of the Games, and the excitement is building as Team Korea is grabbing more wins. On top of the country's first medal over the weekend, with Shin Hee-yeon grabbing the bronze medal in one of the cross-country skiing events. In wheelchair curling, Team Korea's 5th preliminary match against Germany is currently underway. If Korea manages to win, they'll be undefeated and go level with China at the top of the round-robin group. The 5-man mixed team logged in its 4th victory against Canada earlier this morning. The two sides battled back and forth, but with Canada failing to earn enough points after the 8th end, Team Korea won the game 7-5. The victory comes after Team Korea defeated the USA, Slovakia, and the neutral Paralympic athletes from Russia over the weekend. Over at Pyeongchang's Cheongsan Alpine Center, 4 Korean snowboarders competed in snowboard cross on Monday. Of Korea's lower limb impaired riders, only Kim Yoon-ho managed to get through the qualification round, but he failed to move on to the next round. For those with upper limb impairments, Korea's Park Soo-hyuk finished 21st out of 22, and Park Kang-sung was disqualified for missing a gate. Let's now look at some of the standout events for Tuesday. Shin Hee-yeon will continue his hunt for medals in the men's sitting 12.5-kilometer biathlon race together with Lee Jung-min. There's also gold up for grab in the alpine skiing men and women's super combined, with the game starting from the morning. And Team Korea's para ice hockey players will also see if they can continue their winning ways on Tuesday afternoon in their 3rd preliminary round match against the U.S. It's likely the Koreans will secure their very first qualification for the Paralympic semifinals. That's it from me for now, but I'll be back with more updates on the Paralympic Games tomorrow. With that, let's look at the medal table for the day.
Thank you for that sporting update, Siwon. We appreciate it. And in a meeting with his top aides, President Moon expressed hopes the Pyeongchang Winter Paralympics will boost positive awareness of people with disabilities, similar to how social perceptions were changed by the 1988 Summer Paralympics in Seoul.
장애인과 비장애인이 더불어 살아가는 아름다운 세상을 구현하려는 패럴림픽까지 성공시켜야 올림픽의 진정한 성공을 말할 수 있을 것입니다.
The Liberal leader called for the public to show support for the Paralympics just as they did for the Winter Games in February. Moon noted the lack of coverage of the current global sporting event by the Korean media and urged them to allocate more airtime for the Paralympics so that more people can catch the exciting competitions. There has been calls for a constitutional amendment to better reflect the current social and economic state of the nation. After 3 decades, at last, a visible step towards making the long overdue revision. Kim Hye-sung gets us up to speed with the developments.
The Special Advisory Council on the Constitution under the Presidential Commission for Policy Planning has completed its final draft of a proposed amendment bill Monday. At the core of the amendment is South Korea's government structure, the introduction of a 4-year, 2-term presidency. Currently, South Korean presidents serve a single 5-year term, and there have been debates that this limitation hurts chances of long-term policy continuity and leaves presidents as lame ducks before their terms run out. Another revision is on the nation's capital, which is not stipulated in the current constitution. The council said it is looking to add the capital by legislating it through law instead of directly stipulating it in the Constitution. Some other issues include decentralization of power, boosting regional autonomy so that municipalities can co-prosper with the capital area, as well as boosting people's basic rights such as rights to safety, healthcare, and information. The committee will report its finalized proposal to President Moon Jae-in on Tuesday. The president had called on the National Assembly to speed up efforts to craft its own revision plan in time for a referendum to be held in tandem with the local elections in June. But rival parties have failed to make much progress as they have been divided over the timing to hold the referendum as well as how to change the nation's governing structure. The Blue House said Monday that the government's proposal can be scrapped even after it has been submitted if the National Assembly comes up with its own proposal. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Seoul vowed to use all possible means to counter the impact of America's trade protectionist measures. According to our Kim Ji-yeon, the government also plans to decide by June whether to sign the comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon touched upon various trade-related issues at an economic ministerial level meeting on Monday, in particular to those stemming from rising U.S. trade protectionist measures on imported steel and other Korean products, including washing machines and solar panels. He vowed to use all possible means to counter its adverse impact, saying there's a high chance similar measures could be implemented by other countries.
I've sent a letter to U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin asking him to exclude the Korean steel from the U.S. safeguard duties. I've also scheduled a one-on-one meeting with him on the sidelines of next week's G20 finance ministers meeting in Argentina to discuss a wide range of issues related to bilateral trade.
Kim added that growing fears of a global trade war come amid moves to normalize interest rates by major countries due to a possible U.S. interest rate hike scheduled for later this month. As one countermeasure, Kim said the government will be diversifying the country's trade routes, and with this in mind, the government will be finalizing by June on whether South Korea will be signing the comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. The deal is a mega free trade pact signed by 11 former members of the TPP after the U.S. withdrew in January 2017. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
According to sources, a U.S. court ruled for its Commerce Ministry to reassess duties levied against South Korea's largest steelmaker, possibly a response to complaints of abusing a special anti-dumping investigative system. Kim Bo-kyun has the latest on the continuing row over America's controversial import tariffs.
Industry sources are claiming that the U.S. Court of International Trade has ordered the U.S. Commerce Department to reassess the countervailing duty it charged against South Korean steelmaker POSCO, which skyrocketed in 2016 due to the application of the Adverse Facts Available, or AFA, rate. The AFA rate is a special rating system used by the Commerce Ministry to levy high tariffs on companies that do not cooperate in the investigation process, such as failing to submit the required documents on time. According to Yonhap News Agency, citing industry sources, the court ruled on Monday for the Commerce Department to adjust the 59.72% countervailing duty it imposed on POSCO's cold-rolled carbon steel in 2016. POSCO filed a petition against the decision that same year, as the department had initially imposed a rate of just 0.18% during its preliminary judgment in 2015, but adjusted it by applying the AFA rate, citing noncompliance of some documents and late disclosure of the raw materials as reasons for the adjustment. Pundits say that the duties are likely to be lowered if they are re-examined. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
Turning to the negotiations on how Seoul and Washington will share the cost of stationing U.S. forces in South Korea now, the Trump administration is expected to ask us to pay more. After the first meeting, officials here say it could be a long and tough process. Oh Jung-hee shares with us the defense and foreign officials' remarks.
South Korea and the United States have begun a new round of negotiations on sharing the cost of stationing U.S. forces in South Korea, and Seoul says the talks could be tough. Last week, foreign affairs and defense officials from Seoul and Washington met in Hawaii for the first round of negotiations on what's called the Special Measures Agreement. Briefing reporters on the results, Seoul's foreign ministry called it an exploratory and basic exchange of opinions. It added that from now on, the negotiation process could become more difficult and require more than just one or two meetings. But the ministry also said both sides agree that the costs have to be shared in a way that strengthens the Seoul-Washington alliance in their combined defense posture. The two sides agreed to meet again in South Korea next month. Since 1967, the U.S. has covered the financial costs of its troops in South Korea, while Seoul provided the land and facilities. But starting from 1991, the two sides started to share the costs under the Special Measures Agreements, or SMA. The 9th SMA, signed in 2014, expires this year, which is why Seoul and Washington are looking to sign a 10th one for the years to come. The costs include the hiring of South Korean workers at U.S. bases, facility construction, and logistical support. South Korea is known to have covered roughly 45 to 50% of the total cost, to the tune of almost $900 million. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
China's National People's Congress voted on Sunday to get rid of presidential term limits. This enables Xi Jinping to potentially be at the helm for life. Won Jong-han helps us gauge the effects the permanent fixture will have on neighboring countries like South Korea.
China's presidential term limits are gone, allowing Xi Jinping to rule indefinitely. It's a change many experts think will enable President Xi to further consolidate his own power and enable China to pursue its interests in the region more aggressively.
It's possible that China's foreign policy will be tougher than before. This is because, unlike Mao Zedong or Deng Xiaoping, Xi has been given ultimate power and authority before making historic contributions to the party or nation. So, because Xi needs to demonstrate his achievements, his political goal will be all about putting his country's interests before anything else.
One country that will be watching China closely is South Korea, specifically in regard to Beijing's policy on North Korea. China has been putting significant pressure on the North through sanctions that have reduced bilateral trade by billions of dollars. President Xi has also responded positively to news of talks between North Korea and the U.S., but it's expected that on North Korea-related matters, Xi Jinping will use his newfound power to continue putting his own country's interest first.
Despite some disputes and distrust between China and North Korea, to keep strategic relations on the Korean Peninsula in balance with the U.S., Xi Jinping will try to hold on to China's North Korea leverage.
Meanwhile, in the economic sphere, South Korea could face some economic challenges in the coming years if it finds itself caught in the middle of a trade war between China and the United States.
There is a growing concern that China could impose trade restrictions on countries, including South Korea, amid the United States' increasing economic protections against China.
But there's also the potential for China to improve relations with its neighbors through President Xi's trademark One Belt, One Road policy amid at opening new trade routes.
Xi Jinping's One Belt, One Road project means China cooperating with its neighbors. So there could be some new opportunities for South Korea.
Xi Jinping, now the most powerful Chinese leader since Deng Xiaoping, has consolidated enough power to rule as long as he wants. How that affects China's behavior internationally will be something that its neighbors will be watching carefully. Won Jong-an, Arirang News.
Back here in the nation, a three-term lawmaker from the Democratic Party of Korea submitted his resignation Monday after a woman accused him of sexually harassing her back in 2008. However, Min Byung-do denied any problematic behavior, adding he would resign and reveal the truth to restore his honor. The ruling bloc already hit a case of involving prominent members, asked him to reconsider as shedding light on what really happened should come first. The Democratic Party is not being lenient in all cases, though, as the Me Too movement has the potential to affect the upcoming local elections. It vowed to undergo tighter screening for anyone planning to run in June. Staying with the wind of change brought on by Korea's own Me Too movement, the number of investigations into cases of sexual harassment and assault, many involving high-profile figures, continues to grow. Among the accused is renowned theater director Lee Yoon-taek, scheduled to be summoned by the police this week. Park Ji-won has the latest.
Korean police are investigating more than 40 people accused of sexual assault and/or sexual harassment. This week, they will be summoning 65-year-old theater director Lee Yoon-taek, one of Korea's most prominent playwrights and theater artistic directors. Lee is accused by 16 women, all from theatrical circles, who claim that Lee sexually assaulted them at different times between 1999 and 2016. Lee has been banned from traveling overseas, and police have interviewed 10 of the 16 accusers so far. On Sunday, the police conducted raids searching for evidence at Lee's residence in Seoul and at theater studios and offices related to him. They have also launched a preliminary investigation into renowned film director Kim Ki-duk. The international award-winning filmmaker now faces multiple accusations of rape and sexual assault. 3 actresses claim that they were raped and assaulted either at film sets or in hotel rooms. Kim is reportedly abroad now and has said there was no coercion in his relationships with the women, but the police have been in touch with the accusers as they investigate. 52-year-old actor Cho Jae-hyun is also accused of rape on the set of a Kim Ki-duk film, plus other incidents of sexual harassment, which the police are looking into. Starting this Thursday, the police will launch a special task force to streamline the complicated process of investigating sex-related crimes. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, the sky was so great today. I didn't even need to check out online to know the dust levels were really high. I was literally just soaking it in and feeling it.
Well, Daniel, the western part of the country, including Seoul, has been issued with a severe ultrafine dust advisory. And currently, Seoul is at levels 4 times higher than usual. And the dust is expected to stick around in most areas until tomorrow morning and then clear up into the afternoon. It's also going to be foggy tomorrow morning, with Seoul and Daegu starting at 6 degrees Celsius, while Busan wakes up to 10 degrees. And into the day, Seoul rises up to 17 degrees, and Gwangju and Busan peaking up to 20 and 17 degrees. But keep in mind that this is only until when the sun is actually up. And now the temperature is expected to remain high until Wednesday, but over Thursday, nationwide rain will bring the mercury back down to the seasonal average. And meanwhile, the weather over in Pyeongchang, where the Winter Paralympics is being held, a bright day is ahead, along with some warm daytime highs, but cold mornings and nighttime temperatures. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you in tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Thank you for watching. Good day or good night, depending on your time zone.